Well, hello, and today's video is can we adjust the height of a brush in the pen plotter while we're plotting so that we can use these and be slightly more expressive with them? And the answer, to save you time, is yes, but it is a code-based solution, so you can't just throw an SVG at it, and that code is linked just down below. But you'll probably want to stick around to find out how we got to that coding solution anyway. And let's start by looking at what the problem is. Here's the pen plotter, and you have this amazing fine-grained control over both the X and the Y axis, but the pen is either kind of just up or down, and that's it. It's kind of like a 2.5D plotter, where unlike a CNC machine where you have full control over the Z axis because you're often applying force down to drill into things or carve into things, it just kind of drops the pen onto the surface, which sounds a little weak, and it sort of is, but at the same time there are references to setting the pen height both up and down and all the speed in the docs, so that we know that we can do it. So let's have a little play and see what it can do at the moment. So let's use the AxiDraw toggle command. I'm using the command line here to toggle it up and down. So that's down, up. So we move from about up there to about there. So let's spin up some Python code and see what we can do. So I've got some code here, all written in Python. We're connecting to it. We're going to use millimeters. We're setting the pen down position to be 0 and the pen up position to be 100, and then we're going to make it go up and down and up and down. So let's see what happens. Okay, let's do that again. Alright, so it seems like we have a lot more play when we're using the up and down position than when we're just doing a toggle. Let's try that. Mode toggle. So that's the normal range of motion. And that's using our Python code. Interesting. Let's write some code that's going to draw a square, and we'll set the pen down position between each point. Okay, here we go. So we're going to have the pen up, and then we're going to move to 50-50 because we're in millimeters. Then let's set the pen down to 80. We're going to do an update. We're going to move the pen down, and then line to 50 across 100 down. I don't think we need to set the pen down, but we're just going to leave it in there for the moment anyway. We're going to go down to 60 because of being over the top, and then let's go to 100. Let's go to 40, and we're going to 150, down to 20, and we're going to return to 50-50, and then we're going to do pen up, move to 0, 0. I don't think we need all these pen ups and pen downs, but I'm just leaving them in anyway, because line 2 is an implicit pen down and move 2 is an implicit pen up. Let's just see what happens when we run that. Stick a pen in. I have no idea how this is going to go, so let's just drop that in there. Let's see if this actually works. Oh my goodness. Okay. So move down a little bit. Let's set these to 60, 40, 20 and 10. 0. Try again. Alright, interesting. So the pen didn't change height whatsoever at all, which we kind of expect, because what the pen down position does is it sets the position for next time the pen goes down, and that only happens after pen up. So what happens if we do a pen up and then a pen down? Let's turn this paper around. Okay, so that's a little bit better. It has definitely set the level, but it's going up and down between each thing, which isn't what we want at all. Now you're probably ahead of me here already. What happens if we set the pen up position and the pen down position to the height that we actually want, and then alternate between pen up and pen down? Let's try that. All right, so what are we going to do? We are going to go pen up, we're going to move up. Then we're going to, let's use go to instead. Okay, we're going to set the pen down position. Let's make this 70. We're going to update, and then we're going to get rid of all of this. AD go to 50, 100. Sure. AD pen down. Right. So we're going to go to 50, 50, set the down position, update it, pen down, go to there. Now we're going to set the pen position up to 60. Update. Pen up. Get rid of that. AD go to 100, 100. Whoa. And now we're going to set the pen down to be 50. Update, pen down. Okay, and then we're going to set this to be 40. Update, pen up. So it's done it for us. And now we're at pen up. So let's do a pen down. Set that to 100, which is all the way up. Let's do an AD update. Pen down, because the last thing was an up. And go to that. I have no idea if that's going to work. Let's see what happens. So we went down a bit further, down even further. Oh, and we got some fast movement in there because obviously the pen up speed is faster than the pen down speed. We're going to make these all just a little bit lower. 50, 40, 30. Let's see. Oh. Well, evidently when we're messing around with this, we need to make sure that our pen position is set correctly before we move, but that is actually pretty good. So it's now giving us what we want, that we now have variable height because we're alternating between pen up and pen down. I think that's closer to what we want. I think we're really close to a solution now. So if we have your pen up and your pen down position there and there, and you toggle between them, the pen's going to move up and down. But if we bring those closer together until they're always the same thing, so if I want my pen down at 20 or up at 80, I do that, and then let our code keep track of where they're up and down, and then just toggle backwards and forwards between them. So instead of doing this, we're actually just of the correct height. So let's do that code now, and then try sticking a sine wave on it and seeing what we get. So I've changed the code a little bit. I've adjusted the speed so the pen goes up and down and as it moves. And here we've got our move function, where we're going to toggle between either being up or down and changing the height to be exactly the same thing. I've got some variables here to make it easy, but here is our sine wave, where we're going to start and end. We're working in millimeters, so we're going to start at 30 millimeters and go all the way to 257 millimeters. And we're modifying the height based on the X, how far across we are. So let's see if that works. Stick a pen in. I'm interested. Will this work? Let's do that. Okay, let's go. So it looks like our servo is going up and down, and that's happening in the range of, where's our height range? 50 is the upper, 30 is the lower. And we're actually getting brush height. Fun. Let's change this code a little bit. So we're going to make our Y. Let's take that down to 98, so we won't go quite so far. And can we invert this? Let's find out. I'm sure it's very straightforward. Alright. Let's see what happens now. So in theory, we should be starting... Yep, there we go. So the times when we would be moving up, we're now moving down, and we've managed to move ourselves 5, 6, 7 millimeters that way. Now, what are we using? We're not using the full range, so when that drops down, we can see that this is getting left behind. So we've only got a little bit of play on the brush, so we could adjust that. Let's do one more. Let's do one more. So now we're going to, let's undo that inversion. Okay, and take this down to 91. We get the idea. So we've already generating a pattern here. So now let's have a think about what else we could do with being able to set the height. So the thing is, I'm not that keen on using Python code. I can do it, and I've done it here, but I much prefer using Node.js or JavaScript in the browser. And I know that you can communicate with the penplotter on the serial port, but there's some problems with that. It's slightly more complicated. We can control the brush height up and down, but there's no safety net that if you tell it to go sort of out of the range, you'll start to damage the motors. If you use the Python library, if you tell it to go somewhere ridiculous, it won't go there, it will just stop. I think it lifts the pen up as well, which is great. And another reason not to move it to talking to the serial port directly is we've already just written the code here in Python. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap that up as a little web server where we'll be able to call the X, Y, and Z position on the URL, and then I should be able to call that from Node.js or the browser or anywhere, in fact. So let's do that and see what it gets us. I've updated the code a little bit, which you can see over here. I've wrapped the code in a little web server using Flask, which is just up here, and it's exactly the same pretty much, only we now have this root/move where we're reading in X, Y, and Z parameters. There should be more error checking around here, but I'm not going to worry about it. Return some JSON, and it's running on localhost on port 4777. So let's go over to here and try moving to 50 millimeters by 50 millimeters and all the way up. As if by magic. Okay, let's go to 150. 100. Nice. So now we're controlling. Let's go to 150, 150 and move the plotter down. Okay, so we need a little bit of delay on adjusting things, but I can now move it up again. Okay, let's move to 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters, which is 100, 100. Great, so now we can control this. So I should be able to use my phone and hit that URL and then control this plotter from here, or from a browser, code, JSON. So I think we pretty much nailed it. Let's calibrate the pen here. So we talked about this before. Let's see what we can do. We're going to put the brush in, and this is the position where it moves around. So let's set it to, let's set it down to 90. All right, let's go down to 80. It's not quite touching, so let's go down to 75. 70. Okay, so now we're just touching the paper. Let's lower it down all the way to 0. And we can see there's no point going all the way down to 0 because this is stopped at this position. And what we want to do is adjust this until this is just about touching. So let's take it up to 40, 35. 35's just off, 40. Let's go to 42. Okay, there we go. So 42 to, what did we decide the other one was? 76? 80? 80 seems good. So 42 to 82 is about the range for the brush pen set in at this position, because obviously it's going to depend on the brush that you're using. These brush pens, if anybody is interested, you can see that. This is the Pentel color brush, also called the Pentel art brush. And then this brush here, which is smaller, is just a Pentel brush pen. They look like this. They're really cute. So we're going to try some experiments with this. So these two Pentel brush pens, that's what we're going to be using. All right, let's try the same thing again. We're going to use some node code I've just written here, much shorter because all the logic is in the brush server. Here's where we're hitting it, the same start X and Y, and then we've got the fetch over here. Let's run this and see what happens. Okay, interesting. So I've got the height setting wrong, but other than that, it's all right. And then you can see here where the URL's been called with our Z height. That's pretty good. Okay, let's try one more thing. We'll flip this over. Right, so if we have a look back at our code over here, now what I'm going to be doing is reading in an image. So here's the image. It's just a black and white grayscale type of thing. We're going to read that in, and we have our brush low position. Let's go to 40 for that, and 80. And we're going to load in the image, which is happening here. And as we step through the X and Y position, we're going to be reading the RGB from the pixel, taking the average to get the grayscale, and then setting the Z height from that, and then calling the URL. Let's see what this looks like. Alright, I think that worked pretty well. I mean, you've seen the time lapse, but there it is. Just straight lines. Let's do the same again with some concentric circles and see how that goes. I'm going to change the brush pen to blue instead because I think that black is running out of ink. And yeah, let's give that a whirl. As we're dealing with circles, we're actually going to start the circle randomly somewhere within the page, away from the borders. And then this is where we have our circumference stuff. We're randomly picking a start angle so it's not always in the same place. Because when you have lots of circles and they're all starting in the same place, you end up with this kind of seam that you can notice. So we're randomizing that. We're getting the new X and Y, and we're increasing the radius. So let's just set this away and see what happens. As you can see, the ink is already flowing here. I think because this is squeezing it, so that's something to keep an eye on. But let's just do it anyway, shall we? Okay, here goes. Well now, it's a few days later, but by the magic of editing you won't know that apart from I messed up the continuity on my t-shirt colour. Anyway, on Friday we were using the OG AxiDraw, and over the weekend I was thinking, yeah, but all the new stuff is the NextDraw using their brushless servo, so I want to try it again using that servo. I don't have one of the new NextDraw machines, but I do have this, which is the original one that has this addition that's now built in, and the purple brushless servo, and then this spring type of thing here, which they all come with. So the servo we're using the other day was the blue original one, and then there's also the green coreless servo. That's the type I have on my A1 pen plotter over here, but we're interested in this, So we're going to set this plotter up over there and do the same thing again. The first thing we're going to test is the standard toggle. So if I just use the toggle command, we go down and up. So that's about our range. Now, quick side note that when you finish using the pen plotter, you should always leave it in the toggle down state so you don't like ruin your spring that's here. I've got a non-standard configuration. It doesn't really matter. I've got an extra one of these down at the bottom. And the other thing is the up position. It should have just a little bit of play in it, and we'll see that get affected in a moment, I suspect. So that's our toggle. Let's switch to using our brush command. Change this to be all the way down, which we've got a lot more play on here. We've gone a lot further down. Now, we don't know when you put the brush in there whether it's going to get that far down, but that's how much it's trying. If we go all the way up to 100, yeah, see, that's really scary. That's too crushed. If we go down to 80, that's no better. 70, no. 60, yeah, 60 is around the same. If I just have a look at the toggle, I've plugged in new settings, I've got the easel out, so let's give this sine wave a quick go. I've also changed the length of the sine wave because I figured it might be a little bit better. All right. So we have some good brush down action there. All right, let's go again. We're going to knock. Oh, let's go for 95. We need to invert this. I think we're pretty much done. That was fun, and I have to say, I think that's pretty good. I haven't been able to do stuff like that with an AxiDraw NextDraw pen plotter before, so there's lots to explore there. I really like having a server on the URL, like a RESTful API where I can just send it X, Y, and Z coordinates. I wish we kind of had that more, and being able to control the height. I can understand why you don't, because I had to do quite a little bit of configuration, and then you also have the timing of the pen up, pen down. I think on the iDraw pen plotter, the latest ones, I think you do have control over the Z height, and it also has a RESTful API on the very latest version of the pen plotter. So while I'm talking about all this with the AxiDraw here, I think with the iDraw you already have access to all of this type of stuff. And even though I do use the iDraw, I tend to use the AxiDraws for most of my day-to-day stuff, just because they're the ones that happen to be connected most of the time. Anyway, I thought that was kind of interesting, and I've shared the code with you below. It's linked. It's completely unsupported, but it's all there, and you can tweak values if you want, so that's good. And I think I'm done. I'm Dan Catt. I'm an artist. Here's my studio here in Shrewsbury. I have a whole bunch of drawing machines and I play with those. So if you're interested in more of this, subscribe, I guess. I do week notes that come out every Friday that are kind of like a visual journal. Some people find those interesting, some people skip all those, and I also have a newsletter too, which talks about all this type of things. Anyway, thank you for joining me. Now I need to put all this stuff away over here. Okay, you have a lovely time. I will see you in the next video.